This week on MasterChef Australia, 50 hopefuls begin the journey to become Australia's next MasterChef.
It's time to hustle, hustle.
Whew.
They fought every day to stay in the competition.
I never thought it was going to be this hard.
And for some, the dream has ended. But for others, it lives on. 12 contestants so far have secured places in the top 24.
Is this real?
Yeah, it's an awesome feeling.
Tonight, the pressure's off.
This is hilarious, George.
In 2011's first Masterclass, and the theme is Mother's Day.
This is my mum's recipe, this red wine octopus. I've tweaked it a little bit.
Gary makes a special breakfast any mum would love.
The dish is called green eggs and ham.
And Maggie beers in the Barossa Valley for some classic country cooking.
I don't think you'll ever have a lovelier chook.
The top 50 has been a really, really hard slog. Everyone's pretty exhausted, so the fact we've got today to do a masterclass is just going to be a total relief to just sit back and soak it all up.
There's absolutely no pressure today. It's just all about learning and doing what we came here to do. Learning from George and Gary is a complete once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Masterclass. It's something we've all been waiting for the whole time in this top 50. No pressure, no elimination, no dramas.
Welcome back to the Turbine Hall on Cockatoo Island. What a week it's been. 12 lucky contestants through already to the top 24. That means 12 spots left, something to fight for. And today, you might pick up a few tips and tricks to help you on your way. Masterclass is all about putting us back on the spot. Front of the classroom, it's like being back at school. Pay attention, write some notes. We'll cover the basics. We'll blow you away with a few flashy bits and pieces. But remember, this is the start of the journey. So with that in mind, welcome to this year's first Masterclass.
Earlier this week, we had one of Australia's finest cooks join us here in the top 50. A pioneer of the culinary scene here in Australia. Someone that blows our mind. And that was Maggie Beer. The Maggie Beer pressure test was a fantastic challenge.
3 dishes.
It showed to us who can make desserts and who can't.
Don't overwork the pastry. It just has to come together, nothing more than that.
Now, a lot of you struggled with the pastry side of things that day. Seamus, it was a bit of a disaster. You had to leave it off the plate.
It was terrible, terrible, terrible.
Kate, you're on the other side of the spectrum. You did extremely well, and from there, you were put through to the top 24. Well done. Jay, I believe you're not much of a dessert man, but you managed to keep out of the bottom 10. Good effort, mate. And Cleo, you did a great job in that pressure test and secured a place in the top 24. Right, you four, you're off to an exclusive masterclass in the Barossa Valley in South Australia with Maggie Beer.
Well done, you guys, well done.
Right, off you go to your private masterclass. Learn lots.
Yeah, good stuff.
And we'll see you back here soon. See you, Jay.
Right, first up on Masterclass, it's a special one. This coming Sunday, it's Mother's Day. Mums spoil us rotten, don't they? They've looked after us all of our lives, they still do, and every so often it's nice to pay something back in return. And I'm gonna teach you guys a couple little techniques, but around a dish that I think all the kids around the country should make their mums for brekkie this coming Sunday. And the dish is called green eggs and ham. Now, green eggs and ham's been on the Phoenix menu for a number of years, and the reason I love it is because we make homemade crumpets. So there's a couple little lessons that you need to learn. What we're going to nail is a basic hollandaise, a basic poached egg, and how to deal with a yeast product like a crumpet. We're going to put it all together in a nice little simple cafe breakfast dish. Okay, dealing with bread most people are scared of, and essentially a crumpet is a basic bread. There is 3 steps, okay? And the first ferment is to activate the yeast. So warm water, about 37 degrees, which is blood temperature. Sounds awful. How do you know? If you pop your finger in, you can't tell whether or not it's in the water or not. It's exactly the same temperature, all right? So yeast goes in, and there's 1 1/4 cups of water, 7 grams of yeast, dried yeast, and then to give it a little bit of food, because it is a living organism, I've got 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, all right? Now that's going to take about 10 minutes to really start doing its thing, which means feeding it and starting on its way in terms of multiplying, all right? Put it on the side, warm spot, not too hot, then we'll come back to it. Let's have a look. So what you can see, it's got a little foamy surface to it, right? That means that the yeast is alive, you've activated it. If you came back to that and it looked exactly the same as you'd left it, it's dead. You've either got the water too hot, it's too cold, or maybe the yeast isn't from a good source, all right? That's the first step. Second step is to incorporate that into our flours. Now I've got a cup of strong 00 flour, and I've got a cup of cake flour, which is softer flour, okay? So what I'm going to do is put 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar into the flour, okay? So we pour the activated yeast into the flour, give it a whisk, and form it into a batter. I could whisk this happily for about 3 or 4 minutes, but I'm going to put electric beaters in there, and I've got to mix it until I develop the gluten so it becomes really nice and stretchy. And we'll know that because it starts travelling up the length of the beaters, all right? Look at that. It's changed completely, hasn't it? It's like being a kid again and experimenting with flour and mixing water to it, all right? And that needs to now ferment, all right? So the way I look at that is that's your dough. That's your base, all right? Remember, you started it, just kicked the yeast into life. Now you're really giving it a big meal, and you want it to do its thing, which means it's going to multiply, it's going to start giving off carbon dioxide, it's going to start aerating that batter, all right? So warm place, cloth on top. So that's going to take about 45 minutes. Ooh, 45 minutes, proving time. Look at that. Fantastic. Good stuff. That's what you call a living thing. Amazing stuff. Yeast is incredible. So I've got 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt, and basically just give it a good old mix for about a minute. This is important. I don't know why, but if you don't mix it, if you don't give it a good old mix, then you just won't get the same result. You're sort of essentially knocking the air out, you're strengthening the gluten. And if you think about that, it's like kneading bread again. So, see? Really stretchy. All right? So now we've got to let that prove again, just for 10 minutes this time, all right? And then we're going to add some milk and bicarb, which is a second aeration, all right? Little doona, warm place, give it a rest for 10. This dough has just started to activate. Can you see there's little bubbles on the surface? Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a second aeration, which is bicarb. 1/4 teaspoon of bicarb, 1/2 cup of milk, which we've warmed, so it's the same temperature as that lovely room temperature batter, okay? And then we just mix that together.
Right, should we pour this into a
Yep,
jug?
I think that's a great idea. And then what we've got to do is just introduce these little moulds. So what we've got to do is just make sure that these are nicely oiled, okay, because the mixture will stick otherwise, all right? And you want to make sure that this pan, and it's non-stick, but it's just nicely oiled. And you want a medium heat, so you want enough to set the crumpet. It's going to cook from the bottom, okay? So 3/4 this way up the mould. So these will take 5 minutes, okay, if you've got the temperature bang on. And if we're lucky, that mixture is light enough and active enough for little bubbles to start forming through those crumpets. While that's happening, let's blanch the parsley and the spinach for the herb puree. This is going to form part of the green eggs, which is our hollandaise.
Blanching anything green, it's important to put salt in the water, okay? Okay, so we've got picked flat leaf parsley. That goes into boiling salted water, 1 cup worth. And that doesn't take long at all. Literally in and out. Just a couple of seconds and into ice water to shock it, yeah? spinach goes in. Again, doesn't take long at all. 1 cup worth. And we just strain off that spinach. Then that all goes into that ice water just to shock it.
And the reason for reducing the temperature as quick as you can, so it retains that green, because it's the green, the chlorophyll that you want to preserve, okay? Really important.
We just place that on a cloth to remove any excess liquid. Now it's time to blend. So that's ready for Gary's Hollandaise.
Right, crumpets.
Oh, hot little crumpet.
Love a hot little crumpet, George. That's beautiful, isn't it? So what you've got is you've got these lovely little aerated yeast cakes, all right? And that's what a crumpet is. And then, you know, it's slightly stretchy and it's got some density in it because we mixed that batter so that we stretch the gluten, all right? So that's brilliant. Good recipe to have, trust me, all right? So now we've got to make hollandaise. My reduction always consists of a vinegar and a white wine, normally equal quantities, okay? And I'm just going to save a little bit of vinegar for my poached eggs, right? Also shallots. The more the better, to be perfectly honest, because they add a lovely sweetness. Sliced or chopped, but I've got 2, all right? Bay leaf, okay? So this is an aromatic. And a couple of peppercorns, okay? So what you're going to do now is you're going to reduce that until you get a lovely, syrupy, sweet and sour, very acidic reduction, okay? And that works perfectly with the fattiness of the hollandaise. So I've got another one that I've made, all right? That's the reduction, okay? That is the base of a good hollandaise, all right? Okay, so the next step is to use your reduction and your egg yolks. 3 to 4 egg yolks, all right? So we're going to put a bit of the reduction, all right? Good splash of water. There's a couple of tablespoons in there. And then what you want to do is you want to aerate this egg yolk mixture before it even goes close to the heat. Now, if you think about it, it's the bubbles, the aeration, that will allow you to cook this evenly. If it was just egg, lightly whisked, it just goes like an omelette. It's flat, and it's the aeration that allows that transfer of heat nice and evenly. So this is aerated. You've got boiling water, okay? And now that bowl of aerated egg yolk and the reduction goes onto that boiling water, all right? Now you've got to whisk continuously. The thing you've got to remember, and this is where most cooks come unstuck, is that you are in control of the heat. You are in control of how quickly this cooks, right? So the best way to understand that is that you take it on and off, feel the bottom, go, geez, that's hot, it's cooking. When it's not so hot, it's not cooking. Put it back on. And the idea is to get as much air into that egg mixture as possible until it ribbons. So it's light, it's fluffy, and it's evenly cooked. It shouldn't taste eggy. Now, can you see it's thickening up already? It's not very hard, is it? But for some reason, everybody makes it really, really hard. And it's because of that lack of understanding of how to control heat. So what you want is that nice, thick sabayon. Should ribbon, should be clean, and it should not be scrambled in the bottom of the bowl. Really, really important. You achieve that by controlling the temperature. That's it. You achieve a nice, light, fluffy sabayon by aerating it before as well as during the whisking process. George, can I get you to hold the bowl for a sec? That's it. So all we got to do now is just whisk in about a cup of clarified butter. A lot of people worry about the fact that they got to go fast. It's not about going fast, it's about understanding what's happening here. It's emulsifying, okay? So you can actually just go slow if you want, and it will still emulsify. See how easy that is? All right. Little finger. Oh, it's powerful, isn't it?
Oh, yum.
A little bit of lemon juice, not too much. A little bit of salt. All we've got to do now is put that puree of green herbs into that hollandaise. But we're going to do that at the last minute, otherwise it will start to lose its vibrancy, okay? So crumpets are made, hollandaise is made, green puree's made. Only one thing left to do, poach eggs. Boiling water, good dash of white wine vinegar, good pinch of salt. Back to the boil. So, fresh eggs. And you drop the egg into the rolling water, okay? A few eggs in. Turn it down to a little simmer. And they're going to take about 3 minutes to poach perfectly.
So I've just taken the crumpets that Gary made and I'm just warming them back up.
Eggs are ready. There she is, all right. So make sure you drain the water away onto a cloth.
So a little bit of salt and pepper straight away while they're hot so it absorbs that flavour.
So this is plating up time. Crumpets on the plate. Oh, they look absolutely smashing. Let's do 3. So beautiful leg ham. And look at the difference. This is carved straight off the bone. It's got some texture. Also love a little bit of fat in the ham. Yeah, because that makes it truly special. All right, pop the eggs on. Mum's gonna be happy. Absolutely special, beautiful. Right, last little thing. Take our hollandaise and put our green herb in. Give it a whisk until we're happy with our greenness. George, I reckon that's good to go. Don't be crazy with the stuff, OK? Mum's going to put on weight if we're not careful. With just a nice little dollop over the top. So, there you have it. Mum's special present for Mother's Day, my green eggs and ham. So, who's going to taste them? Who doesn't want to taste them? Unbelievable. Rachel, Matthew, Danielle, up you come.
I want to taste them too.
Tuck in, let's go. Oh, let's have a look.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah, that's all right, that's good. George is in there, he's gone.
That hollandaise is awesome. The lemon and everything that flavours in that hollandaise is unreal.
Matthew, is it worth making your own crumpets, do you reckon?
Definitely. They don't taste dry. They've still got a bit of moisture, and the crispness on the outside is just incredible.
Really moist, lovely. Rachel, tell us what you think.
I just love the hollandaise. It's my favourite part. It's just beautiful. I love the lemony flavour and the fresh herbs. It's just absolutely delightful. I love it.
Danielle.
I love it. It's that tang through the hollandaise really cuts through like that rich egg yolk and the butteriness, so you don't feel like you're being so naughty.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Grab a seat. All right, here's my top tips for the perfect Mother's Day breakfast. Poached eggs, always a winner. Number 1, fresh eggs. That's really the key. Tip number 2 is just having that water at the boil so it's tumbling, because the idea is that you break the egg into that moving water and it rolls it around and forms that lovely little sphere. Tip number 3, if you're making a hollandaise, it's all about controlling the temperature. And to manage that, you just take the bowl off the heat, keep whisking. Lovely, light, airy sabayon. That's what you're after. So you know as well as I do, your mum has spoilt you rotten all of your life. Now it's your turn to spoil her rotten. Cook her breakfast on Mother's Day. It'll be the best thing you can do.
I'm so excited. We've just arrived for our private masterclass with Maggie Beer. As we drove through the Barossa, all you could see were vineyards, orchards and little village shops, and it was just incredible. The place is full of life and full of food.
So many beautiful food products come out of the Barossa Valley. Olives, grapes, quinces, almonds, cheeses, you name it, it's all here.
Hello. The thing I love about Maggie so much is she has so much respect for produce. And you can see the passion when she talks about it. Her whole face just smiles and lights up.
How lovely is it to have you here in my beautiful Barossa. There is nowhere else in the world I want to be. I just am so lucky. I live in a community that almost everyone, in one way or another, is connected to food and wine. And, I mean, they're the things that I'm passionate about and the whole valley is passionate about. You know, the Barossa really does have a unique cultural heritage, and that gives us such a base to work from. So for me, the Barossa is just a food lover's paradise, and I want to share it with you. So we get to do a couple of dishes today. A little later, we're going to be doing some pastry. Now, that was one of the things that gave a lot of you grief when we did it earlier this week. I'm going to be showing you how to prepare a really beautiful Quince chocolate and almond tart. But first, we're going to get back to basics, and we're going to cook one of Australia's favourite dishes of all time, the roast chook, and it's what every Australian needs to know, how to cook a really well brought up chook properly. So off to the kitchen? Come on. I would never use anything but a well brought up chook. And I'm here in the Barossa, and am I going to use anything other than my daughter Sassy's Barossa chook? No. A well brought up chook means it's free range, so they've had to have a good diet, and that chook is able to gobble around, picking up things from the ground. That's what you need in a chook. The chook has to come out to room temperature before you cook. If not, what's going to happen is your cooking time is going to be very different because it's going to be chilled right to the bone. One thing that's so important, always tuck your wings behind. If you have your wing tucked here, then it never cooks here. So tuck it behind, and that's whether you're cooking a chook, a quail, or anything else. Now, I can't help but use a bit of rosemary. For me, I think rosemary is my favourite herb because I can use it in almost anything. It just has so much to add, and even just sticking it into the cavity, as simply as that, really will permeate. I always put a good squeeze of lemon in the cavity. And once again, that flavour does permeate, and I'll leave it in as well, okay? Now, a bird has got to be massaged. So we've got some extra virgin olive oil. Australian, please. I won't cook with anything else but extra virgin olive oil. Sea salt. Okay, so this is where I do the big massage thing. The sea salt helps the caramelisation, and it's really important to flavour. Now it's time to get the chook into the oven. It's really important to me to put it on a trivet. Now, a trivet is merely like a cake stand to just raise it from the bottom because you're going to put the garlic in and you're going to put some verjuice and water in later. I'm going to cook at 200 degrees, and that's a fairly high temperature. If you're going to use a fairly high temperature or a high temperature, don't put it in a deep dish. If you put it in a deep roasting dish, all your heat has to sort of bounce over the sides.
Is there any particular reason why you haven't tied the legs?
If the legs are a little bit splayed in the most unladylike manner, then they'll get that extra cooking time without separating the leg from the breast. And because the breast, this deep breast, needs some protection, that first 40 minutes, I'm going to just cover the breast and put it into the oven just like that.
Maggie, how do you determine the cooking time of the chicken?
For me, I guess it's experience. So for this 1.9 chook, I'm going to cook it for probably 60 minutes in oil. 40 minutes at the beginning, and then another 20 minutes, and then about a 40-minute resting period. Now, I'm also going to use beautiful Australian garlic. I'm not even peeling it because I want my guests to also use their hands when it comes to food. And so the idea is that they'll squeeze these out and you'll get that lovely buttery flavour. I'm going to blanch these garlic for 3 minutes, and that will just start that cooking process so when they go in at that secondary part of the roasted chook, they won't be totally raw. They've begun their cooking process. And remember, I want them to be really creamy when they're finished. Okay, we've had 3 minutes of garlic being blanched, so let's just strain it off and we'll just leave those to cool. Okay, this has had the first 40 minutes in the oven. This is where I have protected the breast. I now put in the blanched garlic in the base, water in the bottom. Now the water in the bottom, can you remember why?
Stop it from burning?
Stop it from burning, because I'm now going to add just a tiny little bit more extra virgin olive oil, because remember this breast that was previously massaged has been protected. Tiny bit more salt, and then the secret weapon is the verjuice that's going to go all over the bird, and that will heighten the flavour of the bird enormously. Now I'm going to protect his little legs, or her little legs, I didn't ask. And we're going to put this back in, still at the 200 degrees, for 20 more minutes, and then do the long resting period. So, breast away. So we're getting back to basics today. with our beautiful roast chook. It's in the oven. In the meantime, we're going to prepare some parsnip mash with some fresh pear. And I think, Cleo, you should come and do the work. Parsnips are... People either love or hate, and everyone should love them. And the way you're going to prepare them, first of all, we have to peel them and we have to cut them up. And you can tell they're fresh because they're quite white. If they're withered or really a deeper yellow colour, you know they've been out of the ground a long time. So, do you want to go ahead and peel them? Now, can I ask you, if we're cooking a root vegetable, do we cook it in cold or hot water?
Cold.
This little rule of thumb about anything from under the ground, you put cold water in. It's just that the vegetables are more dense. If it went into boiling water, the outside would cook and the inside wouldn't. So, cold water in to the boil, and I salt straight away.
Right.
These have been cooking for about 10 minutes, so we're going to moulie this. Do you want to prepare the pears while I moulie? It's an inexpensive gadget, but it's really fantastic. Of course, you can use a masher, but a moulie will take out any fibrous bits, and so I just use a moulie out of habit, really. OK, thank you. There are many jobs in the kitchen that are team. OK, push it all in. OK, having done this preparation, now you've got your pear, but we need that cartouche on because we've got to keep all the oxygen out. Cleo, you're free. Oh. You can go and sit down. Thank you for your help, because the chook will be ready to take out of the oven. There is my roast chook. Now, the next and really important part is resting the chook. I'm going to turn it over. It has to rest upside down. For a chook this size, I prefer to rest it for 40 minutes. I just want to take the garlic out and the juices out.
Is there a reason why you rest it upside down?
I rest it upside down so the juices can flow back in and keep the breast moist. The breast is the part that you most need to protect, and so as it rests, the juices come back into the bird. Wait till you try this local garlic. When you squeeze it out, it's soft and buttery, and see, creamy as. The flavour is so, so good. So I'll put them back on the tray and just loosely covered with foil. And I say loosely because I know it's cooked. The resting period will finish off that cooking and it will keep warm for up to an hour. But certainly the 40 minutes that I'm suggesting as perfection, it's still really warm and absolutely beautiful. OK, I warm my parsnip up by first melting some butter in the bottom of the pan. And of course, the amount of butter depends on your love of butter. For this amount of parsnip, I'm going to put half of those pieces of pear and just move them around. Now, the pear is cold, the parsnip is hot. And the great thing about that is as you bite into it, as you eat, you get that explosion of ripe pear in your mouth. So we'll just put that in a small serving dish. Now it's time to plate up. I'll put the chook, well rested. I'll put the garlic cloves around the base of the chook. Just those last juices from the chook. Just moistening the bird again. Now I get to carve. See how juicy this is. A bit of the thigh. We must have some of these beautiful garlics. I'll take this leg off. See, it's shiny, it's moist. The pear and parsnip mash. Just a few of the juices. It's not a sauce. And there you have a chook that I hope will absolutely delight you. Are you ready to taste? Come on. Now you have to taste a bit of thigh and a bit of breast, the parsnip, and squeeze the garlic. Everyone's so polite. At my family, they just bog in.
The chicken is as moist as it looks. It's just melt in the mouth.
And the pear, the sweetness through that parsnip, but it's so subtle. It's just perfect.
It's that surprise.
And you get that little pop.
Yeah.
The breast is my least favourite part of the chicken, and that is unbelievably good. That's amazing.
Oh, garlic's so sweet. It tastes so different to garlic cooked, nutty and creamy and buttery. It's just really, really nice.
There's nothing I love more than cooking for people who love to eat.
Feel free.
So, my top 3 tips. First, choose a well-brought-up chook and bring it at room temperature before you cook it. Then it's a case of covering the breast for those first 40 minutes with foil so it doesn't dry out. And when you finish the cooking time, turn it upside down for a long resting period of, say, 40 minutes. So this is a very basic recipe that every Australian, I think, should have in their recipe book. Simple, beautiful, and it's all produce-driven.
We're out here at the plaza, the beautiful Cockatoo Island, here on Sydney Harbour. One of the challenges we set you this week was to create your very own desert island dish. You got to pick 5 of your most favourite ingredients and create a dish that you would eat every single day if you were stuck on a desert island. And I'm about to show you my desert island dish. Red wine braised octopus with hilopites, smoked bone marrow, herbs and flowers. The first thing I'm going to show you guys is how to tenderise your own octopus, but we're going to do it the old-fashioned way.
So how long do you have to do this for, George?
This will take probably about 15 minutes. Most fishmongers these days actually use cement mixers to tenderise the octopus.
How do you know when it's tender?
So you'll know what will happen is there'll be this natural soap that comes out of it. It's not coming out yet, so I've just got to continue.
This is hilarious, George. I haven't seen George work this hard for a long time.
Do you want to go?
No. I get mine from the fishmonger already tumbled, you know?
Wow, there you go. See all that soap? That's an indicator that this octopus is ready. So for this dish, we basically want the tentacles. But before we cook it, we just need to remove some of the skin. And to help you remove some of that skin, just rub it with this cloth.
Actually comes off quite easy, doesn't it?
This is my mum's recipe, this red wine octopus. I've tweaked it a little bit. She probably won't be happy about that, but... And there you go.
Beautiful.
Okay. Now, we're going to cook our octopus in cryovac, okay? Take the tentacles, pop them into this bag, and then tip into it 2 bay leaf, a teaspoon of toasted and crushed coriander seeds, 1 clove of garlic, 2 sliced shallots, a cup of Shiraz, and a cup of port.
Good stuff.
And then about 100 ml of olive oil.
Normally your mum would boil it,
she'd
right?
put it all into a pot and boil it.
Whereas this keeps all the flavour and quite condensed.
Right, Gary, we can cryovac that now.
Pop it in, goes in this way, right?
Yeah. If you don't have a cryovac machine, just pop the ingredients into a pot and cook them for the same amount of time. Fantastic. Right, let's cook this. We're going to pop this into a pot of water at 72 degrees using a thermometer, and that will take about an hour and a half to cook. I'm being quite precise with 72 degrees. It starts going above that temperature, it's going to become really tough and chewy. The next step is we need to smoke our bone marrow.
And you've already prepared a little smoking tray. Now, what's in here? What have you got?
OK, so in there's hickory chips. We've got some star anise, some cinnamon. That's going to let off some really lovely flavour. We've got some long grain rice in there, and I pop long grain rice in there because that helps hold the heat in the smoke. And that's really about it.
So the bone marrow?
Yep.
You buy the bone marrow like this?
Yep.
So you can actually push the bone marrow out. If you get the butcher to cut it down into lengths, and then you just push the bone marrow out. And it's really important to degorge that bone marrow, which means just soak in cold salted water and you change the water regularly, okay? So as long as it's in for what? 6 hours minimum, 12 hours overnight, you'll end up with a white bone marrow and the blood's in the water. That's why you've got to change it regularly, all right?
Fantastic.
That's really important.
So we're going to cover this with tin foil and then pop that straight on the heat and get it smoking. They should take about 5 to 10 minutes to get that smoke going and penetrate the bone marrow with that flavour. And then once that's done, we pull it off and let it sit covered off the heat for 1 hour, and then you'll know it's ready. The octopus has been cooking at about 72 degrees for an hour and a half, and that's ready to be pulled out of the pot. So what we've got here is some ice water, and we're just going to shock the octopus so it doesn't continue cooking. Now, bone marrow, that's been smoking for about 10 minutes. We've turned the gas off and left it for about an hour. And what we've ended up with is this beautiful tinge of golden brown and caramelisation over this bone marrow, and that's all come from that smoke. It's literally halved in size. Here we are on the beautiful Cockatoo Island, and I'm cooking you my desert island dish of red wine braised octopus, chilopides, smoked bone marrow, herbs and flowers. Right, now we need to make our chilopides, our Greek pasta. So about 500 grams of 00 flour.
This is going to be hilarious. Yeah. The wind's blowing. Come in close. That's it. So we've got our flour in. How many grams?
500 grams.
Pinch of salt.
Pinch of salt.
So it's exactly like making pasta. A couple of eggs.
2 whole eggs. A tablespoon of olive oil.
Good stuff.
And then basically we turn that on and slowly add the milk.
So it's just to incorporate the eggs, the salt, the olive oil, form a little crumb, and then you're looking for a fairly soft dough.
Very soft dough.
So 3/4 of a cup of milk.
That's correct.
Put the whole on in.
Whole lot.
So it's very soft.
That's right.
It's very different to a pasta dough, which is quite crumbly, right? Love cooking outside, George. Changes the dynamics, doesn't it? Seagulls, flour everywhere. So just bring that together.
Yeah, that's right.
Knead in the same way.
Correct.
So basically, when you knead, always use that part of your hand, you know, that little chubby bit. And what I do is I push down and turn. It's always going anti-clockwise, push down, turn. And that's just a nice basic knead. And wait until that dough becomes nice and cohesive, and you can feel it change. So this needs to rest like a normal dough, like a normal pasta dough. So we can pop that in a bowl, wrap it in cling film, or if it's just going to rest for what, half hour?
That's right.
Just put a little bit of flour and just set it aside. And that just makes sure that all the ingredients, the olive oil, the salt, everything just comes together. And the gluten relaxes inside the dough, which is important.
That's right.
Okay, so our pasta dough has been resting, minimum half hour. And then we've got to put it through the machine.
Yep.
Same as pasta, so
exactly.
Into a quarter, do you think?
Yeah.
And put that aside. And then if we're going to do the same thing as we do with pasta, then what I would make sure is that that's got a little bit of flour on it and just tease it into shape.
Because it's such an elastic soft dough, you can actually stretch it.
Because it is elastic, this would roll out very easily.
Oh, very easily.
So what we're going to do is we're going to laminate this, all right? Which means that we're going to fold and develop the gluten in the dough, all right? How many times would you laminate that, George?
10 times.
Just so you feel it starting to
feel it starting to tighten up.
Gets a bit stretchy.
What happens if you use normal flour as opposed to 00 flour?
00 flour just basically means it's been milled finer. You can use plain flour, there's nothing wrong with that.
So this has been through a few times now. We're starting to laminate it. And so the whole idea now is just to keep it floured so it slips through the machine easily and then start reducing the calibrations on the rollers, which means that it's going to get thinner. Right, so the pasta's been laminated. It's gone through those calibrations. It's now down to one of the thinnest settings. So what we want to do is then attach this little attachment here, which has got a tagliatelle or fettuccine attachment on it. And then we're just going to pop that through, keep it nice and straight. And then you get those beautiful little pasta strips. How you going, George? Coming out all right?
Yeah, beautiful.
Good stuff. Yeah. Flying away in the wind. It's good to have a friend to do it, isn't it? It's nice and easy. Why do you put it over this, George?
Well, you like to dry it a little bit, just take off a little bit. You've got to remember, it's a really moist dough. It's got milk in it, okay? So you just dry it a little bit and it will help it when you go to cook it.
Yeah.
Now it's time to cook it. It won't take long at all. Salty, boiling water, for a couple of minutes. And while that's cooking, we're going to start assembling our dish of octopus. We're just going to remove that out of the bag. Now look how deep, rich and red the octopus has become. Now all this liquid on the bottom here that we've cooked the octopus in, we reduce that down in a pot by half, and we'll be creating a little vinaigrette with that, okay? So this is some that we've already reduced down, and you can see how much more thick that's become.
It's beautiful.
And you know, literally to make this vinaigrette, very simple. Lots of olive oil, and we just whisk that up. Now with our octopus, we're just going to slice this on an angle.
That looks great.
How beautiful does that look? And there's a lovely little salad, that on a plate with a bit of olive oil and lemon juice.
Nice.
It's delicious.
Right, this pasta is nearly cooked. It's only taken a couple of minutes. We'll just lift that out, pop it into a bowl, and then what do you do, George?
A little bit of olive oil. Of course, a little bit of salt.
Good stuff. And then that olive oil and that salt penetrates through that beautiful,
That looks
beautiful
beautiful,
noodle.
doesn't it?
Good stuff, yeah.
And this is ready to be served. First step is to do a little knot of the fettuccine. Gaz?
Oh, that's my job, is it? Oh, right. That's because you don't want to do it.
No, because you're better at it.
How big a knot?
That's beautiful. Perfect. Right, next step is our red wine octopus. Then some of our little dressing.
Well, that's beautiful. And that'll soak right into the pasta. That's gorgeous.
Then the next step is we've got some shaved fennel here, radish and fennel fronds, and we've had this soaking in ice water so they're really crisp. So on with the radishes first. Our crispy fennel, our fennel fronds, and some of these nasturtiums, which look absolutely beautiful. Some of this lavender.
Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous.
And they're all edible, these flowers. And then finally, our smoked bone marrow, and I'm gonna grate it over the top. A little bit like Parmesan, yeah? There you have it. This is my red wine braised octopus with chilopites, smoked bone marrow, flowers and herbs. My desert island dish. Right, the fun bit, tasting time. Craig, Sun, Victoria, time to taste. Off you go.
So what do you taste, son?
The port, the wine, and the bone marrow is giving it this extra kind of beef note to it, you know? It's really rounding it all out. It's quite an amazing combination.
Craig?
Actually amazed at how much of that octopus flavour is still in that sauce. You can really taste that sort of fishy, octopusy flavour. It's beautiful.
Victoria, tell us what you tasted.
Look, I just love the fusion of the sauce and the pasta and the radish. The crispness of the radish was just really beautiful. It's a delicate dish, but really intense in flavour. It's really, really lovely.
Guys, thank you so much. Right, top tips for this dish. Octopus. It's very important it's been soaked for you or you soap it yourself. That will guarantee tenderness. Top tip number 2, with the pasta dough, it's very important you allow it to rest and then you laminate it. If you don't laminate it, you're not going to get that amazing texture.
And top tip number 3, think about smoking as a way of introducing a new flavour and it added a lovely dimension to a dish.
That was my desert island dish, using ingredients that aren't common. But that's what cooking's all about, being a little bit adventurous, but loving what you do.
Here in the Barossa, we are surrounded by such riches. I mean, we have a beautiful landscape. We live the rhythm of the seasons. Our whole food philosophy is using whatever's in season right at that very moment, which means we have fresh, seasonal produce to cook with all the time. The quinces I love most of all. I can make ice cream out of them, I can pickle them, I can make chutneys, I can make desserts, and that's what we're gonna have. We're making this beautiful quince chocolate and almond tart. Well, earlier this week on Cockatoo Island, a lot of you had some problems with pastry. Seamus, I don't think you got yours actually plated up, did you?
You're missing the pastry component of the
Definitely missing
lemon
the
tart
Yep.
and of that little nectarine.
Yep.
Come on, you're going to actually do it for me with a few tips from me.
All right.
And I want to show you just how simple this pastry is.
Okay.
You can almost throw it on the floor and it will still work if you do those first parts first.
Okay.
Now, you can put the flour in. We have 250 grams of flour and 200 grams of unsalted butter straight from the fridge. One of the tips is to have little chunks, so put it in. And the thing is now, you only pulse it because you want to integrate this flour and the butter, but you want to still have quite big crumbs, if you like, of the butter before you put in the sour cream.
Okay. We don't want to get the butter too hot. Is that why you keep it?
And that's why you're pulsing it, because you want it to stay as little pieces of butter to be visible.
Okay.
So I want you to pulse. If you just keep on doing it, you're going to get the butter warm, okay? Cooking is really about detail, and so it's worth going slow, having a look in, and yes, that's good. It's rough, but the butter is really visible, but it hasn't come together.
Okay.
Now for the sour cream. There is about 160 grams of sour cream. So it's just a tip. You put 3/4 of it in and see if it needs the rest. Okay. And once again, you pulse. And this is the tricky one. Okay.
What are we looking for here?
Where it has to become homogeneous here, right? But let's see. Already I can tell we probably are going to need the rest of it because this has got to come together in a little bit of a ball in here, but not much. But it's always a great rule of thumb never to use all of any liquid in no matter what you're cooking when flour is involved.
And just take your time.
And just take your time and just add more. Okay. All right. Can I have a look? Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it.
Do you mind? Okay. Now I'm going to give it a bit more of a whiz now. Can I do this for you?
You can do this bit.
Okay.
That's good.
Now, and this is what will surprise you. We're going to put it on the bench. Do you want to do your little throw of the flour in that haphazard way?
Yeah, of course.
Come on.
Enough? More?
It's probably enough. Okay, now, when you put it out, I want you to have a fairly controlled throw.
All right. That's pretty good.
Can you take that away for me? Okay, now this is the trick. I want you to do it yourself, but I'll just show you. You want to press it all together. You're not kneading it at all, but you want all the crumbs to come in.
Okay.
And you can pat it down, and you want to keep a really regular shape. Whether you're making this pastry or rough puff pastry, I always use a rectangle.
Okay.
And you can feel that it's come together?
Yeah, it's definitely sticking together.
It's sticking together, and by having the idea of the rectangle, it's got to be the same height all the way around.
Okay.
Because then when it comes to rolling it out, you won't have that problem of one end higher than the other, okay?
So that means you're not actually working the dough at all?
You don't work it at all. You're just pulling it together with only enough moisture that it just sticks
holds.
together.
Yep.
And then we're going to wrap it in some paper and put it in the fridge for 20 minutes, no longer. Now, why do you cover it?
Doesn't lose moisture?
Yes, and why else?
And doesn't form a crust?
Yes. Well done. But fridge smells. I can't bear fridge smells, and even 20 minutes in the fridge, you'll have all sorts of smells come into your pastry. Butter particularly just vacuums it up like you wouldn't believe, okay?
Into the fridge?
Into the fridge for how many minutes?
For 10 minutes, maximum 20.
You pass.
Lucky.
Now, I want you to feel it to know that it is malleable.
Yep.
It's not as hard as a brick. Can we just do a quick feel? Okay, so we know that's going to work. So, do you want to do the throwing of the flour? Have you ever used a rolling pin just like this?
I've tried once and it didn't really work so well. I like the ones without the little rolly handles.
Well, let me tell you, I can't use the ones without the ball bearings that are inside this to allow that freewheeling. And the width of the rolling pin allows you not to have to go there and then there.
Yep.
In a smaller rolling pin, you have to do it in pieces. not this. Okay, I'll just do that first roll just to make sure it's feeling right. The big thing is trying to keep it as even as you can over the whole lot.
Yep.
And we should be able to get it out to something about there.
Yep.
Go for it.
Give it a go.
Ball bearings and all.
And actually, it's pretty good.
Yes. It travels with me everywhere because you can get a smoothness about it.
Yep.
But yes, move it around, whatever feels natural. See it sticking?
Yep.
So I'd flip it now. Yep. A little bit of flour.
Is this the same pastry you'd use for sweet or savoury?
I use it for almost everything, but that's because I'm lazy, but don't tell everyone. And because it's so buttery, the flavour and the crispness and its ability to puff a little. Okay, now what we're doing here is you've got a bit of a ledge, so try and, yeah.
Maggie, would you add salt to that if it was a savoury pastry?
Not for me. I use exactly the same for sweet and savoury.
That's good.
Yeah, and
Nice and
now, so if you'd like to cut it, now you don't have to have a template, but anything that's going to make it easy for you
Is a good idea.
is a good idea. Okay. Now, this pastry does shrink. Just accept it. Don't sweat about it. Allow for it. Okay, first of all, because we have to move quickly with this pastry, either roll it up on your rolling pin, but it will depend entirely on how far you have to take it. See, that has cracked, but there is enough butter in this to fix it up. Okay? Would you like to put it in?
Yep, sure.
Now, what you have to remember is because we know it's going to shrink, it's going to be a little bit of overlap, but do it gently because remember, we don't want to work this much.
Little heat as possible, yeah?
Little heat as possible. Once again, we want to put it in the fridge for 10 to 15 minutes. That's kind of minimum, where it is covered away from...
the smells.
The smells.
Maggie, would you always use baking paper to cover it rather than cling film?
No, it's just my cling film's not working. Normally I'd use cling film.
Is that the same to rest the pastry in that first?
You can use either or in the first. Normally it would make more sense to use cling film, but it was all going skew-whiff and I couldn't get it out. But thank you for asking the question. So it's been in the fridge 10 to 15 minutes, but once it comes out, it's for blind baking. Now, I'm going to prick the base to stop it rising too much because there's a lot of activity in this and really important to only prick it just before it goes in the oven because if you prick it earlier, it all closes up. Now, the thing is, with any sort of tart or pie, is the bottom of the pastry has to be cooked, otherwise you've ruined it. We have our cut-out size here, and that's going to be the receptacle for our beans. Now, I happen to have beans. You could use rice, you could use any type of bean. You have to work quickly because we don't want this to get warm. So 15 minutes for the first look at a 200-degree oven. And here we go. Okay, this has been 15 minutes. Once again, you're moving quickly and try not to get any beans in it. Back into the oven for 5 more minutes. Now, I say 5 minutes, but every oven is different. And if you look in after 5 minutes and it's not got this pale golden colour, you just need a few more minutes in your oven. So that now can sit and we're going to make the filling. Now, you should have got a clue this morning in the quince orchard. I have to cook quinces for you. We're going to make a syrup first. I've got 450 mils of water here. I have 300 of verjuice and 250 grams of sugar, all in at once. Verjuice is really just the juice of unripe grapes. And what it does is lift the flavour of what you're cooking and gives that sweet sour thing, which is what I love. So these quinces have been peeled and I'm just going to slip them into the syrup and I want to make sure they're fairly even because this is going to go into the oven now. The one chefy word I know, cartouche. Now the reason I have this is I want to have the quinces submerged but covered to allow the syrup to reduce as it cooks, whereas a lid wouldn't do that. 170-degree oven for at least 2 hours because it has to have that juice evaporate. We're making this beautiful quince chocolate and almond tart. Look at these quinces. To me, they look like jewels, really. They cook between 2 and 3 hours, depending on your oven. These, perhaps 2.5 hours. But this is what you're after. You want them to still be complete and not mashed. And that beautiful, beautiful colour that's come through an effluxion of time. So now we've got to make the almond cream. 150 sugar, 120 butter, and the most important thing is that it becomes white and fluffy and you don't move on until it does. Okay, let's see. You can tell straight away it's white, it's fluffy, and the graininess is gone. Okay, so now we just put all the other ingredients in and put it on a lower speed now. For this recipe, we have 2.5 eggs. It is important to put 1 egg in at a time. 2.5 eggs means 2 eggs and 1 yolk. After that comes the cocoa. Now, there are 50 grams of cocoa. The next ingredient is 80 mils of vino cotto. Now, vino cotto is cooked grape must, which means it's not just the juice, but the pulp as well, and it's cooked down, and then I finish it with red wine vinegar. But if you have balsamic at home, it'll do the same thing. Now, every ingredient is there except for 200 grams of the almond meal. Just put them in, not all at once. I just want to make sure they're being incorporated there. That's it. We're ready to put it all together. Okay, first of all, about 1/3 of this mix is going to go on the base. And then we are going to put the quinces on top of that. All of the base needs to be covered, because when we get to eat it, I always think it's disappointing when the mixture doesn't go right to the sides.
Maggie, would this work as smaller individual tarts as well?
It'd be beautiful as smaller individual tarts, Jay. I'm going to lay the quinces in now. And once I've laid them in, we're going to just spoon the rest of it on the top. And I'd love it if some of the quinces showed through the final product. The idea is so every piece will have quince. You wouldn't want to have a piece and not have quince right in the centre. So we'll put a little star in the centre. And I'm now just going to blob this all around, because just the idea of some of it showing through. It's going to cook for an hour. And it's amazing how good it is when it comes hot out of the oven.
So is there no chance that the pie base is going to overcook in that hour?
No, the only possible thing that could happen is the top of the rim. But, you know, it depends whether you like your pastry really cooked or pale and insipid. Guess what I like? Do you have any doubt? Okay. At this stage, it's all finished, ready to go in the oven, 175 degrees for approximately 1 hour. I can take it out of its case straight away, being careful not to burn myself. It worked. It worked. Okay, now this is a tart that is beautiful hot. And I'm going to serve it with ice cream. So I love that juxtaposition of the hot and cold. First cut in. That's it. Because I want the pastry to be lovely. Oh, it's beautiful. See how the quince is in the centre and the chocolate and almonds either side. I know it looks a piddly piece, but I'm thinking of you. And ice cream. This is a bitter almond and quince ice cream, but I think it'll all go together beautifully. And that is all that it needs and nothing else. So there's my tart. Quince first, chocolate, almond, and a beautifully sloppy, almost, almond ice cream. Come and taste. Before the ice cream melts totally. Try it without the ice cream and then with the ice cream as well, just to get that hot and cold in the mouth. You could do it without the ice cream, but it wouldn't be as good.
The quinces are quite caramelised and beautifully soft and smooth and silky.
And not too sweet.
Not too sweet. Jay, what do you think?
The quince is quite held its shape, which is good. There's
Yes.
still a really nice texture there. It's not just mushy, which most fruits, if you cooked for that amount of time, would probably go a little bit softer than that.
Yes.
The hot and cold's good too.
And the hot and cold. It would be lovely with vanilla as well. It's just that didn't have any in the freezer. So, what are my top tips you want to know? Firstly, your pastry. You must have your temperature right. Make sure your butter is really, really chilled and don't overwork it. And for me, seasons dictate almost everything I do. So every ingredient must be fantastic. It's been so lovely to have you here, so thank you for coming to my beautiful Barossa.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been an absolute privilege and a pleasure to hear all these tips and tricks, and yeah, really, really thank you from the bottom of our heart.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much,
Oh,
Maggie.
Cleo, it's been lovely to have you here.
Maggie. Thanks
Jay,
so
Seamus.
Thank you, it's been amazing.
And good luck with the rest of the competition, and boy, will I be watching.
Thank you.
Who wants a drink? Kumar, pour some champagne. Eat, come on.
Guys. Gary and I travelled the country. We hand-picked the top amateur cooks of this country, 50 of the best. And here we are now, we're in Sydney.
Wow, this is the biggest masterclass we've ever had. And this is what this competition's about. It's about food, it's about friendships, but don't forget, it's also the competition. It's the battle. There are 12 people already through to the MasterChef kitchen. Their ticket, their key is that apron that they're wearing. You should be envious. This is what you were chasing. You were chasing the dream. If you want to make that dream come true, you've got to fight for the right. You've got to earn the right to get one of those aprons. Guys, to you.